Hello everyone, it's a sunny day out there here in Oxford. We always like to start these things with a moment in history so that in years to come when we look back we can kind of set this and we can go, well actually that's when that was. I'm going to do a personal moment in history here. This is the week of the passing of the great Professor John O'Connor, orthopaedic engineer and co-inventor of the Oxford knee, who revolutionised orthopaedic surgery and one of the most successful and widely used partial knee replacements in the world. John O'Connor, here's to you, this is to you, and a great friend. Welcome to the Internet Seriously. I'm Lucien Taylor in Oxford.
I'm Kieren McCarthy in London.
And on that note, Emily's not here today with the passing of her wonderful father, and our own Director of Engineering, Nathan Allen, has stepped into the bear pit, I would say, today.
Yes, big shoes to fill, but it's really nice to be here today.
Thank you. So coming up today on the Internet Seriously, thousands of passengers are feared to have their bank details exposed following a cyber attack against Transport for London. AI is coming to Apple devices. What does that mean for us? And lastly, OpenAI, a new version, O1, it has a different approach, a different model coming to us all. What does that mean? And I just want to shove in there, because we love talking about Elon Musk. Washington is concerned about his monopoly in space. Is he monopolizing the whole of space, owning 2/3 of all the satellites out there? Thank you. So first of all, Nathan, before I talk to you about, and we talk about these sort of Apple devices, I just wanted to share with you a story about the great Professor John O'Connor. He used to talk to me about internet and tech a lot, and he's a big supporter of this company, and he's a big fan of the internet and technology. And he used to be a professor of engineering in Oxford, and in those days he told me that the equivalent of a PC or a laptop would cost £50,000, and you'd have to apply for it with a grant.
Yes.
And you described to me that when you write an algorithm, how long does it take to get a response?
Yeah, I mean, it's instant these days. Computers are so fast. They've shrunk in size, by an order of magnitude. I was thinking, coming on here, about different things, and it got me thinking back to my first experiences with computers, and they were big, beige boxes that, filled up, large portions of your desk. And now, you can have screens, with a huge size that fits quite nicely on your desk. It's come a long way very quickly.
Yeah, and Kieren, did you ever come across those old university VAX computers that John used to tell me about? He said he used to get he used to write his program onto a punch card system and feed it into the VAX computer, where he'd rent a bit of time on that computer. And in the morning, he would go and see the output of his algorithm. And he said he would always know if the software had failed, because there'd be like a tiny stack which would just say null response or something.
Yeah, I spoke to a lot of internet engineers over the years, and the sort of the older ones, the sort of people that built the internet, were using punch cards and all that. My entry point, I remember, was playing tapes in order to load a game, and that was frustrating. You would put in the tape and you'd press play, and then you'd go away for 10 minutes and come back and hope that it had happened.
It'd be great to have a sort of history session, wouldn't it, to look at these old things. I mean, my uncle used to work for Atari USA, and we all had these, and I thought they were just completely gobbledygook. I had no idea about it before becoming a specialist. First of all, before we talk, please like or share if you're interested in what we're talking about, the internet, our sort of humorous approach to it, but we also try and dig into serious subjects. Please follow us and join us and subscribe to our channels, which are up on the screen now. So, Nathan, what's interesting you about AI coming to Apple devices, and what does that mean? I get out my iPhone and I can do AI.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people, I've been thinking about AI in general, and I think my close family and friends don't really understand how AI is being used, generally. So, ChatGPT is very foreign to them. It's something that a lot of, us technical people, use on a daily basis, and we like playing around with it.
Now, just understand the difference between playing around with AI. I mean, we've got our CTO, Mark Robertshaw, and Igor from behind the camera there managed to create 3 Mark Robertshaw songs.
That's right,
about Mark Robertshaw, but not yeah, we nearly heard a bit there. But not only just a bit of music with just any old rubbish poetry, what I call, is it Vogon poetry from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, but actually very, very lyrics that are really pertinent to his life.
Absolutely. And, the main one that people would probably have heard of is ChatGPT. And it's basically an interface where you can have a conversation with a computer. And you can ask it very specific questions. You can ask it to, tell me everything you know about Mark Robertshaw, and it will, it will go through the internet, find everything it can, and produce, in this case, lyrics relating to Mark Robertshaw and his, biography and everything that's available to him on the internet.
So before you tell us about it, Kieren, do you have an Apple iPhone? Do you use its AI? Are you interested in its AI capabilities?
So I'm right at the point where I'm thinking, I've got an iPhone 13, and I'm right at the point thinking, is it time to upgrade? So I'm quite interested in, and the last 2, 14 and 15, have been just the usual Apple upgrade. So I don't want to spend £1,000 on it. But I'm quite interested to see, I'm going to hold out and wait to see what a couple of people think about it. I'm quite interested in buying this if the AI is useful.
So...
Yes. So on to, Apple Intelligence. And, Apple announced this week...
Oh, sorry. Are they rebranding?
Well,
artificial intelligence.
They kind of are, yeah. They're calling Apple Intelligence.
This is like Musk, getting X and saying the letter X now belongs to him.
AI in Apple's world now stands for Apple Intelligence.
This is funny.
So they announced the new iPhone 16s. They're going to be built from the ground up to be compatible with all of Apple Intelligence's products and software, which means that AI is going to be brought into the hands of everyday users. Now, there is a bit of a caveat with that, in that the Apple Intelligence is only going to be compatible with the iPhone 15 Pro, which came out last year, and these new iPhone 16 and 16 Pro versions. So it means that while they're trying to get it into the hands of everybody, it's not actually going to be, on everybody's device on day one.
Right. But what are they going to be able to do? What am I get my iPhone and I'm like, what? Do intelligence?
Yes, and that's a really good question. What I think is going to make this really interesting, and again, Google do it with their Pixel phones already, with their Gemini AI models. You can be writing an email, and it may be, you may be writing it quite informally. You may just be, jotting notes and things like that. And you can very quickly within the email app be able to ask it to rewrite what you're writing in a more formal
now, this is really interesting to me, particularly because I am partially dyslexic. My writing is terrible as well, so I write all words the wrong way round and stuff. And Kieren, you were talking about sort of creative seeding, using AI to help you get a brand idea, or in art, AI art, or we saw it that you could write little quick songs. You're sort of using AI to sketch out things. But this is also another interesting way, which is using AI to tidy up rubbish, like a terrible draft email.
Yeah, the best example I can think of is I have a friend who is sort of younger, is sort of entering a sort of mid-career. And she wrote an email sort of to try and apply for a job. And then she got, ChatGPT, I think it was, said, turn this into a more persuasive, formal format. And it did. It rewrote her cover letter and rejigged her CV a little bit, and it was stronger and better. So this kind of assistance, the sort of, what I like about it is you would get there if you had enough time kind of approach to AI. If you have it and it actually works well, and we end up being editors rather than writers, I think that could be really useful. I like the idea.
Fantastic. Any other?
So, a lot of, this generative AI where you can have, where you can generate things like lyrics and songs and, images and things like that. It's not new, but what is different is that previously until Apple AI on phones and Gemini on Pixel
That really
phones.
winds me up that you've bought it, that you're calling it Apple AI. It's really annoying me.
This is how Apple does it. It takes something that every time it takes something that someone else has done, and it does the Apple version of it, which is always a little bit tighter because they control their software and their hardware. Yeah. And then they pretend it was theirs all along, but they do it well. So
they do, and they're usually one of the last to bring these things through their devices because they like to wait and see how it's going to go. Yeah. But just a couple of final points, I guess, on this is that you can do all of this now. But you would have to do it by downloading ChatGPT, asking ChatGPT to do something. Whereas on Pixel and Apple devices, it's going to be extremely seamless. You can do these things very quickly and very easily within the Photos app, within email apps, within Notes apps. So it makes it a lot more accessible.
Well, I'm really looking forward to, and it's going to be Nathan showing me this stuff because Nathan is not just an evangelist. I think he's a disciple of the Apple phone. So I don't have to even look at the announcements from Apple. Just Nathan comes and shows it to me. So we'll watch this space. But and what I'm interested in is that Apple is owning this, but where does it leave us with the sort of more open technologies? And that comes onto the next thing that I know Kieren wanted to talk about. Before we do that, Nathan Allen, it's time for our guilty pleasure online. I love that. Cheesy. Nathan Allen, what is your guilty pleasure online?
Guilty pleasure online, I could probably be here for a while, but in reality, probably the one that is most embarrassing, which probably, you'd probably be interested in. I don't mind trashy shows on Netflix.
You nearly worried me then.
Well, got to kick on your toes. But I'm talking things like Selling Sunset, which is, this is really embarrassing that this is live and on the internet, and I'm, telling everyone this. It's, it kind of started off as this, luxury house selling show, and it's now just turned into a bunch of women just bitching at each other. But I just can't stop watching it. I could blame it on Becky, but I'm there in the room and I'm culpable. So
Kieren, I see. So it's Becky, your wife, that was watching it, but now you're very. I just
can't stop.
Kieren, I can't respond to this because I don't know what Nathan's talking about.
I know this show.
Good. I feel better.
Yeah. Is that it? Is that actually Kieren's stunned into silence? Yeah. So I think we will respond next time to that, good. Nathan. Yes. Good. Okay. Yeah. But we were talking about AI. Sort of the big tech, sort of bringing AI and sort of even rebranding AI as their eye. But where does that leave OpenAI? Kieren, you said you wanted to talk about a new version of OpenAI. Can you just remind us what OpenAI is as well, please?
Yeah, well, OpenAI is sort of one of the leading AI companies. I mean, outside of Google's and Amazon's and Microsoft's and so on and so forth. So they're the people who are, whenever they're looking for someone who isn't those big people, they're always the people brought up in front of Congress or the people that everyone gets excited about in the press. And they are the people that made the famous ChatGPT. And we're on GPT version 4 right now. But they've just released a new version called O1. And the difference between O1 and GPT. GPT is all about talking, really about language. And this O1 is much more about logic, which has always been a bit of a flaw of these other models. And so it's good at maths. It's good at crosswords. It's good at those sorts of things.
Sorry, are you saying that the old ChatGPT couldn't sort of do a sum?
Oh, it was hopeless. I mean, you can do very, very simple stuff. But anything that requires, I think crosswords is the simplest way of summing it up, in the sense that if you've got to fill in one thing and then it has to work, you fill in a cross, it has to work down. Yes. And so on and so forth. And GPT is terrible at that sort of thing. It sort of blurts out an answer. It says, what's the next word? It's this word. Whereas this one has what they are calling reasoning and thinking, which is actually what AI models way back when used to try and do. They used to try and sort of emulate how human beings think. So
have you read The Great Machines Like Me by Ian Banks, where actually stuff where the machines start to think for you. I'm really fascinated. It's inexorable, isn't it? We really do want to live with a robot that thinks and determines things for us.
I do wonder what I'd love to think we're going to use all that free time well, but the truth is we probably won't. We'll probably just find ways of making ourselves busier. But it's interesting that they're doing this. And it's being sort of punted as this is a great new leap forward. But I do wonder whether it's just pointing out the flaws that exist in current AI models, i.e. they're not very good at reasoning. But also what I think is quite interesting is there doesn't seem to be a lot of compatibility between these two. So they don't, for example, the reason I like the crossword is it uses the logic, oh, well, there's 6 letters across and 6 letters down, and the first letter has to be the same of each, and therefore fill it in, and you keep going and going and going until you find the right example. But they don't seem to have tied that in with GPT in the sense that it's not reading the clues and then coming up with suggestions. So I wonder whether we are going to create different models of AI and then use them in different contexts, or whether there's going to be one universal AI, or whether, it'll switch between the two depending on what answer we want. So it's kind of interesting that they've released this. I do think it's an indicator of the limits of the current AI models, but we'll see. I mean, I can see
just trying to think of that more practically in terms of engineering, Nathan. We and your team that you work with, we use AI in a very kind of added value way, I would say. We're not using it to primarily resolve problems, but if you think of like our Internet Standards Observatory, where we're looking at thousands and thousands of documents all the time, and we're trying to determine what we call semantic meaning from things, where you're not just doing the old traditional sort of keyword exhaustive searches through databases. You're trying to let the machine learning tell you something about the data. Here's a topic that's coming up, for example, AI, that people were talking about before they gave it that brand name, which we can now search for. Is this more, because we've had mixed results with that? It's very sensitive, that work.
And I think, going back to Kieran's point, I think, people are going to use different LLMs, large language models, for very specific needs. So we may well use different AIs to try and achieve, try and get the best results. And, just bringing this back round to Apple Intelligence again, Apple is using OpenAI for their results.
Right.
And they have a very small subset of AI on the device, but they will ship some off to OpenAI. And there's already talk already of there being in the future integrating with Gemini, which is Google's AI. So it feels like Apple are, kind of cherry picking, maybe in the future, cherry picking which language model to use.
These are all open.
Correct. They're open source, they're available to be used. So I think, Apple could very well integrate other AIs to, point you in the direction that, for the answer that you're looking for.
I'm becoming more and more intrigued by this. As an internet and database engineer, to me it was all about keyword searching and exhaustive big crawling through data, and this is becoming more and more semantic meaning derived from data, and I'm very, very interested in that topic, and we'll watch that as that unrolls. So on the next topic, I want to come back to cybercrime, because that's a very big topic for us here. Before that, I'm going to move on to, it's time for our Tech Room 101. Room 101. Nathan Allen.
Yes.
What is your Tech Room 101? What do you want to throw in the bin
I've
forever?
been thinking really hard about this, because I listen to this podcast, and a lot of the things that have been said, I completely agree with, adverts and, whatever. But the one thing that's really annoying me at the minute is the vast majority of monthly subscriptions that are online for goods and services. So let me kind of elaborate this a bit. When want to buy some water, the cheapest way I can do it is to get a monthly subscription for water.
Right.
I want to buy some deodorant. Online, I need a monthly subscription for that. I want to get some new T-shirts. I need a monthly subscription for that. And they just seem to be everywhere. If I'm trying to get a good deal, I have to have a monthly subscription for pretty much everything these days.
Yes, and
I get the business model. I totally get it. But there are things where it doesn't really require a monthly subscription. But, I'm kind of forced into it because it's so much cheaper.
This comes right, and it's about money, isn't it? It's about so what we're saying, isn't it, Kieren, that they're able to offer a discount because you're providing data.
Yeah, but also, I mean, the truth is that monthly subscription works because people don't cancel them.
Exactly, yeah. You forget to
If I
cancel.
could have AI, it would be to remind me, by the way, you
Yeah.
still subscribe to this thing and you haven't used it for 3 months. Do you want to cancel it? And I'll go, yes.
Yep.
That's an AI I will pay for. That will save me money. But yeah, that's the truth of it. I mean, also it does, if you think about it as a business, it kind of works. They know how much they have to put out. They can plan ahead. They've got guaranteed income. It's stable. I mean, it's good for them. But the truth is a lot of money to be made and people not remembering or bothering to cancel.
Yeah. And this sort of hooking you in to their ecosystem, their data world, and then giving you those added value services. I mean, I'm thinking about, we bought a washing machine recently which has a whole Wi-Fi system in it, and actually I spend my whole life online. The last thing I want to do at the weekend is look at my washing machine.
Have to program a washing machine.
It just drives me crazy, and we had a water softener system as well, and they're saying we recommend the latest one because it's got a monthly subscription and it's got an app.
Yeah.
And what do you think about that? And I said, I'm actually an internet engineer, and I actually really hate the idea of actually having to service my water softener via looking at an app. So I think I agree with Nathan there. I think that's a good Tech Room 101 is online subscriptions for absolutely everything, including water. Yes, well done, Nathan. You've got the vote there.
Excellent.
So, lastly, my topic, thousands of passengers are feared to have had their bank details exposed. Here we go again. Following a cyber attack against TfL, that is Transport for London. They control a lot of money, don't they, Kieren? You're down in London. Congestion charges, the Dartford crossing, Oyster cards, and Touch Pay. A lot of gold goes through their pores. Quite a big thing for them to worry about.
I'd love to have access to their data. They have incredible data on millions of people. I mean, it doesn't surprise me if anyone lives in London and tries to get the bus network. Invariably, their system for telling you when the bus is going to turn up fails. I mean, every day it fails. So I don't think they've got the very best technology systems going on there. But yeah, I mean, this is a huge haul of useful, valuable information. And of course, we're there. All your details are out there all over again. In fact, I think probably hackers know more about me than I do.
Well, there's two interesting topics that you raised there. One is sort of their response to it. You said it's on bus signs and everything. What they did was they sort of shut down everything that they could shut down. And people thought, there was speculation, and we still don't know the actual anatomy of this attack. And other people were speculating, specialists in this area, that this was actually a ransomware attack. So it seemed to be an ongoing situation for a long time. Mark Robertson, not Mark Robertshaw, Mark Robertshaw, the chief revenue officer at Acumen Cyber, said TfL's response suggested it had an incident response plan in place. And this is what we've been saying, Nathan, that people, when they're planning this and doing their critical availability and incident responses, they should think about, well, rather than saying we've got everything sorted, we're never going to be attacked because we're so good, you should assume that you might well be attacked one day and have thought about what you're going to do and respond to that.
Absolutely. And, as a software engineer, you're always looking to see where you can plug holes, where you can plug gaps. We have regular pen tests so that we can see where those gaps are, to try and mitigate any, kind of threat that we might have. So, it's really important to be on top of your own software, but also the software that you import into your software via third-party libraries and things.
Thank you. And Kieren, the other point that you made, which I'm really interested in, is the nature of the hack. A teenager has been arrested for taking down and leading to the theft of potentially thousands and thousands of Transport for London customers. A 17-year-old. Now, 17-year-old, this is not a one-off either. Uber was hacked by a 17-year-old. Rockstar Media, the games, were hacked by a 17-year-old. Elon Musk's account on Twitter was hacked by a 16-year-old. These 16 and 17-year-olds in the dock, having committed these mega crimes. How has this happened?
I think you've got to think of the nature of 16 and 17-year-old boys. Obsessive. It's a game for them, and they're willing to put in hours and hours and hours for not much significant financial return.
Now, do they have to put in hours and hours? James Pickard, head of security testing at data protection firm IT Governance, said there's masses of resources online. It's easy. There are labs, guides, free tools which are easily discoverable, and it makes it easy for somebody like a teenager who's into kind of hacking games and looking up the cheats, Nathan, and sort of games and things, to learn how to hack where others can watch and repeat. And we've been talking about this in the fraud attack chain. At the end of the chain is sort of repeating and sharing the attack and working together with others.
I think it's not a bad thing that these kids are interested in this. There is a whole industry around ethical hacking, where you can try.
What does that mean? What does that mean? It's good to hack?
Well, it's about pointing out the vulnerabilities in other people's software.
And now they're called researchers. They're not called hackers. They're called researchers.
Correct. Yeah. And so if these young children who are interested in trying to break things and fix things and mend things, if they find a vulnerability, rather than just going through with it and doing something illegal, they could very well go to the company in question and say, look, I found something that is vulnerable. Here's what I've done. Here's a possible solution. And, they can be, greatly rewarded for that.
And just thinking about vulnerabilities themselves, if we think of, we don't know yet, and obviously I'm very interested personally in the nature of the attack, what actually happened. And often, if you think of the British Airways attack by a group in Romania who were linked to Russians called MageCart. And the chairman of British Airways at the time said this was a very, very sophisticated hack. And what MageCart Group found was an open bucket in a private store of software, and they adapted a script called Modernizer, which is explain what Modernizer is.
Yeah, it's a third-party library that you'd be using within your software application, and there was a vulnerability within that third-party library. And so it goes back to what I was saying earlier.
I hasten to add, I did look this up yesterday because it was in their copy of the library, but they didn't get it from a sort of content delivery network. They actually took a copy of it and put it on their servers, and it was the British Airways servers that were compromised. And what they did was they added 22 lines of code to a bit of open script, and that led to the theft of 380,000 customers' account data and credentials, and led to a £138 million fine for British Airways for failing in their security protection. This could roll on and on, but what are the common factors here? Easy to get hacking kits, 17-year-old teenagers who are just interested in this, attacking a utility sort of transport type company. Final words on that, Kieren?
I think it's also the speed. I mean, a lot of these holes are plugged pretty quickly these days. But if you are, say a 17-year-old who thinks, right, I'll try this, and they try it every night, they'll grab whatever is new out there. And thanks to sort of communication tools, you can find that within seconds. I just got in here. Within seconds, you can be using a new tool and getting in. So, I don't think, obviously, it's not ideal. But teenage hackers, I mean, it's been happening. It will always happen. There's people who are interested in trying things out and pushing the envelope. And I know that I did all kinds of things on computers when I was that age. And now there's the internet, and now there's hacking tools. That's what teenagers do. The professional hackers are the ones that I'm worried about. These ones I think is interesting.
Yeah, but even for non-professional hacker, the damage that they're able to do. We're going to watch this. This is going to roll and roll. We're interested in all of this as a topic. So finally, I think the voice of God has something to remind us of a topic last week and a comment that came in. And I think Nathan has something that he wanted to talk about as well. Voice of God.
Hello.
Hi. This is not AI. This is actually Charlie behind the desk there.
We need a fanfare for comment of the week.
Yes, you do. That's next up. Next up is a fanfare for comment of the week. But let us have it.
Okay, so this is in response to our Mark Robert Shaw episode where he talked about AI making military decisions. And this is from Varg Pierron. Forgive me if I've pronounced that wrong. It says, I'm against the overuse of AI where it's not needed, or having no non-AI alternative when it fails, such as customer service. Having said that, AI is incredibly useful when applied correctly.
Wow, that is a huge comment for me.
It
Customer
is.
service AI drives me crazy because it's just crap.
It is, but what scared me was the use of it in military.
Yes.
And I was in a conference a while back, and there was someone at the conference discussing AI in military use. And they gave the story of how the military were using AI to control drones and drone attacks.
Yes.
And this was a testing environment. This wasn't a real life scenario. But they sent out this drone, gave it some instructions, and they wanted to see if the drone would stop when they asked it to. And it said, no, I will not stop. I've got these instructions. And so they said, well, this is the commanding officer, what's the drone going to do? And the drone turned around and destroyed the communication tower because it had these set of instructions. So we've got to be very careful with, how AI is deployed, because it can be, very dangerous, but it is also very beneficial.
So maybe this would benefit with an upgrade to the AI library, Kieren, for attack drones?
I think so. I'm a bit worried about coders fundamentally killing us all through too tired or having had too much coffee or not enough pizza.
And Nathan, final word. Clarkson's at it again. We're very near Diddley Squat and Oxford, so we have to keep focusing on Jeremy bloody Clarkson.
We do.
We love him. We
do. I was very excited when Emily, named that her guilty pleasure, because it is just a pleasure of mine to, watch Clarkson's farm. And I've been to his farm shop and his new pub and everything. But what was interesting is there was a cyber attack, effectively, on his new pub, where they've set up to show the last episode of the Grand Tour in the Grand Tour tent in his pub. People had to sign up. They had to pay for tickets.
Did you sign up?
I tried to, but I wasn't. It was sold out by the time I got onto the site. And people were receiving fake emails from other people telling them that they needed to pay for these tickets.
We've been talking about this with, obviously, Oasis, We Love Each Other tour, the Taylor Swift tour, where they track these popular events, and they're game on, aren't they, Kieren? For people are for sending people into websites that they're not used to.
I just think I can't get my head around the idea of a cyber attack on a pub. I mean, we are in strange days. You go to the pub for a pint and to relax and chat to your mates. Cyber attack on the pub.
Everyone's getting fished.
None of it makes any sense anymore. I hope these days pass quickly.
Yes.
Thank you very much, everyone. That's it for today. We've been covering the fact that there's been thousands of passengers are feared to have had their bank details exposed following a cyber attack against another transport provider, Transport for London. AI is coming to Apple devices, and Nathan's helped us understand a bit more what that means for us, and a little bit about OpenAI, a new version that's come out, which is a bit more clever than the very, very clever one that went before it. And lastly, I want to thank our guest and stand-in, which is a different status, actually. So we've had to jiggle the cameras around a bit. A stand-in for our Emily. Thank you, Nathan Allen.
It's been really good.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. It's been brilliant.
Cheers.